Hello there, and this is Cholera bringing you the ace matchup of KTF versus SKT1 here in the Rival Battle. This is Game 7, and since you're here this far, I'm going to spoil who plays. This is Flash versus Fantasy. It's going to be a Terran versus Terran on Return of the King, and this should be a really interesting match. Both are actually very strong against Terran. Flash, of course, I would say is the best player against Terran right now, consistently anyway. 4GG, of course, beat Flash in the MSL on the way to winning the last MSL title, but honestly, I think consistency really matters, and Flash shows that against the greatest number of Terran players, he is still the best, I think. Fantasy is certainly no slouch, though. This is Flash in orange at the lower left, and Fantasy's in yellow at the upper left. As you can see already, this format is much less serious than the normal pro format. You can see the players chatting with one another. It's more casual, and certainly there's more room for innovation in these kind of games, or at least for wackiness. I guess not so much innovation, but wackiness, as we saw Flash do in Game 2 against Rumble, going for that 8 racks and then crazy quick proxy barracks, proxy factory rather, in the middle of the map. There's Flash, still has that show tattoo on his face. And by the way, Fantasy is like a little boxer. He's really like Boxer Jr. Just looking at his face, he looks very, very similar to Boxer. I think I'm not the only one who's noticed that in the past, though. He's in the OSL round of 16. And I think, well, actually, I won't give away what record he is in case you guys haven't seen it. By the way, for those of you who are wondering where I've been casting, where I've gone, like I said, I think in video 1, I have been doing a lot of dual commentaries on the Violattack account recently, covering all 3 days so far of the OSL, and soon to be the 4th day of the OSL round of 16. There are 6 days in total. Here's Flash going for the barracks first. I'm really glad that Flash is not once again going for 14 command center, as he did almost indiscriminately last season against Terran. You know, it was basically it was like a drug for Flash. It was like he needed to get off the junk that is 14 command center, because players just exploited it very well. And Flash, you know, of course, addicted to macro. He was just shooting the macro into his veins. But you know, other players took advantage of that, and you know, they found out many ways of beating him. You know, 2 factory pushes certainly could work. Fast wraiths certainly have worked in the past, and you know, Flash just really needed something new, and or at least needed to do something that's more safe, that allows him to get to the mid game and get to the late game without being hugely behind or without being dead. 14 command center is decent, though, against a Terran who goes for a factory fast expand, because a 14 command center will pretty much be able to survive anything that a 1 factory build will throw at it, and unless it's some kind of crazy barracks rush first, and also you'll be way ahead of the player who goes for that fast expand, because your expansion will be much faster. Fantasy, interesting enough, floating his barracks south, he actually built it on their edge, so we might be seeing him putting a couple of Marines in the middle of the map. More likely, though, it's just for scouting purposes. He still has not sent out an SCV yet, and Flash just now is sending out his SCV. Late scouting from both players, actually. But he, luckily for Fantasy, he actually will be going the right direction, and he is going to get to Flash's base right now, and he will actually have that barracks floating over, so it might help him if he decides to go for a tank push. Floating buildings certainly do help, and Flash is lifted up also. He's also going to be searching for the base. Looks like he's actually managed... No, I'm sorry, that is the scouting SCV of Fantasies. He's actually moved in the wrong direction. He's not going to scout Flash first. Both players putting down command centers. Fantasy's in the correct position. Flash is not in the correct position. I think Fantasy put down a second factory too, so Fantasy might have a few fewer SCVs right now, but he is going to have those earlier units, and we do see a Vulture coming out, actually, so Fantasy is going to try to get into the Flash's base and maybe cause some damage, killing 1 SCV there, the scouting SCV at least. And Flash has built his command center on the edge, though, so he will not be able to float down and take his natural expansion. The Vulture would not be able to stop him from putting down his natural expansion if he was building it out there. And yeah, a Vulture's going to try to get in, though. It looks like he's going to micro against his Marines, but notice the mischance there. Oh, bad luck there by Fantasy. He missed the Marines several times there. There is that 30% chance of missing if you're shooting up a ramp, or shooting up elevation. By the way, as you might notice, I'm not sure if you guys know the subtleties of my different styles, but certainly I am definitely trying to change up my styles a little bit and try Definitely different styles every time I cast. I think today I will try to cast as technically as I can possibly. You know, the last commentaries I did with Peanut on the Biotech account were definitely towards the other extreme. They were more of the color commentary, you know, more of you know, talking about the players and what they're like in real life, all sorts of things like that. But I think I'm going to try to stick to as technical of analysis as possible, and there's no better matchup than Terran versus Terran because it's such a positional game. It's such a game that requires you to be aware of the strategic situation all the time. So I'm going to try to analyze this as best as I can, practice my technical skills, and you know, really present you guys a no BS commentary here. Now, you guys, some of you guys will say, "Oh, I like BS though. It's tasty," and well, other people will be like, "I like the technical commentary." You know, trying out different things. Anyway, Flash pushing up with the tank there. The center of the map is on Return of the King is very big. It's really a king of the hill kind of thing. Whoever holds the center will have map control. Here comes Fantasy pushing out. Sorry, those are Flash's units actually, reinforcing his position up there. He might have siege mode coming up pretty soon. Fantasy now sees that Flash is at his natural expansion now, and Flash needs to be very careful there not to lose his tanks. And of course, Fantasy, both are actually racing their barracks over to that location. Very smart there by Flash, planning out his push ahead of time, and hence getting that getting that barracks closer to that area for vision purposes. Fantasy now pushing out with a couple of Goliaths also. So interesting enough, a little bit of a divergence here. Flash is sticking to tanks here, and Fantasy is actually pushing out with SCVs. He wants to break this contain. He has 2 tanks versus 3 tanks. Looks like the tanks are going to go down for Fantasy, but Flash's own siege tanks are surrounded by that Goliath and the SCVs, and Flash's contain breaks here. So really, he did lose a couple of tanks, but I think Fantasy has a slight lead here now. He does have Goliaths versus tanks, and certainly a lot of Goliaths actually. It looks like 4 Goliaths total for Fantasy, and this is definitely a different choice for the Terran player. You can go for more Goliaths early on also. Of course, if your opponent has gone for some kind of rush build, Goliaths are powerful, but if the opponent gets very serious with lots of tanks, you might be a little bit behind because Goliaths just aren't that powerful. Neither player has taken to the air yet. Return of the King might be one of those maps like Wuthering Heights where Terran versus Terrans don't end up going dropships at all, or maybe they'll go to dropships 20 minutes into the game instead of the usual you know, 8 or 9 minutes into the game for mobility's purposes, because there's such a large middle open area that tank battles and you know, vulture sneaks can certainly become very viable. And it's also, of course, hard to run around with your shuttles without getting them sniped out, with your dropships rather. Flash, once again, as I said, he's got the tanks, and the Goliaths are out for Fantasy, so different unit composition here. Interesting enough, no player going for mines or vultures. Flash actually picking off one of the tanks before it does any damage, and he's going to pick off the other tank right now. There goes the other tank, and Fantasy now in full retreat. Flash's tanks are going to wipe out these Goliaths. Look at the applause from the KTF team. They know that Flash is now taking a little bit of a lead, and here's Boxer Jr. He looks a little bit intense there. Flash rushing in with the tanks, though. Unfortunately, he has no support units. You need support units to get up towards the tanks and try to take the initial shot from the sieged up tanks. Flash is still going to pick off those tanks, and he's got that SCV to repair. I think he'll be able to reestablish that contain now. This, of course, is the ace matchup, so both teams definitely want to win this. They need to win this, basically. I'm not sure what the prize pool is, if any, for this matchup, but certainly it is for pride. It is for which wireless company has a better StarCraft team. Maybe one day when the United States has pro video game teams, we'll have, you know, Verizon versus AT&T. You know, certainly that'd be very interesting. Maybe when StarCraft 2 comes out. Anyway, Flash has that good position once again now, and his factory